everyone, Midit's here. I don't need to tell you that the multiverse saga of the Marvel Cinematic Universe has been controversial, to say the least. They do not in the slightest compare to the Infinity Saga, which felt much more cohesive and high quality overall, even if it did have some issues. That doesn't mean everything from recent Marvel is awful. Some great things have been released, and more media could be great if minor tweaks were made. I especially began to realize this after watching Thunderbolts, which I enjoyed, so that brings me to the point of this video. Today, I'll try to create my version of phases 4 and 5 of the MCU using what already exists. While I could try to create some original projects, I know for a fact that I am a worse writer than the people who work at Marvel Studios, no matter the quality of some of their more recent projects. So I hope you all enjoyed today's video, and let's get straight into this. Now, one of the biggest problems the modern MCU has is just how much content has been released. Now, I've heard Marvel fans say the MCU is like the comics, where you don't have to view everything, and while I can understand that, I feel like the average moviegoer probably doesn't. The release of so many movies and TV shows has made people feel burnt out on Marvel content, and while things have slowed down, what happened in 2021 and 2022 has done harm that will take a while to fix. So my first decision was to remove every Disney Plus MCU show. They heavily contributed to Marvel fatigue, but they also likely affected the quality of the movies. Marvel didn't release 4 movies in 2021. They released 9, because these shows practically are movies. So while I may not talk about specific fixes I would make to certain movies, you can already imagine that in this version of events, the people behind the scenes will now have more time to smooth out some of the problems these movies faced. Also, removing the shows helps to deal with one more thing that needs to be solved. Until the last few movies, the MCU has felt completely aimless. Some of this was out of Marvel's control, and even the Infinity Saga wasn't perfect in this regard, but cutting some of this content and keeping the bare essentials helps to focus on 1 or 2 major stories instead of the seemingly countless plot points the various MCU movies and shows were setting up. Anyway, we're far enough into this video, let's talk about the first movie. Now, I'm limiting phase 4 and 5 to 6 movies, similar to phases 1 and 2 of the MCU. It's a shame what happened to Black Widow behind the scenes, but this was a weird movie to start phase 4. It's set before Endgame, so it doesn't feel like a proper beginning, and it's not that great. There are some important characters introduced in this movie, but I feel like there are other places you could fit them in, so I think you might just have to throw this movie out. In its place, the first film will be WandaVision. Yes, that's right, we're going to be turning some of the shows into movies. WandaVision feels like a much stronger start to phase 4, and I feel like it would do a bit better financially compared to Black Widow. WandaVision starts and continues pretty well, but like a lot of other Marvel shows, the ending isn't the best. I feel like the main issue is the TV format because, like I said, these shows feel like movies. So hopefully, WandaVision comes out as a better product overall when altered to fit a movie format. It was also important to keep this show because of what it connects to later on in Phase 4. Speaking of which, I'd also want some changes to the ending that make Wanda's characterization in her next appearance not feel as jarring. The next movie I'll talk about won't take long. Shang-Chi is a pretty solid movie, and I'll be keeping it as is. There could of course be some improvements, but I'm overall happy with what we got. I did think about swapping the release dates of Shang-Chi and WandaVision, so you could get an Iron Man-esque standalone movie at the beginning, but Shang-Chi would probably do worse if it were released earlier, and WandaVision would likely do better than Black Widow, as I stated before. This is getting more into the specifics, but maybe change the end credits scene where he meets with some of the former Avengers. One theme I want to be more clear about in Phase 4 is something Phase 5 touched on at the end, and it's the idea that the Avengers are separated and that the world feels kind of lost without them. If this were more focused upon earlier on, it would make the various unique storylines going on make more sense, and it would also create better build-up for the events of Phase 5. Anyway, let's move on to the next movie. I'm moving No Way Home to when the Eternals came out because having the next movie come out in November feels kind of weird. People have been more critical of this movie over time, but it was a huge success, and I still enjoy it. Once again, less content coming out means a chance for some minor improvements, but there's nothing huge I need to say about this film, besides the fact that it is important for being the first proper multiverse movie in the multiverse saga. Oh yeah, I keep forgetting this. Charlie Cox's Daredevil is properly introduced as part of the MCU in this movie. That is also something important to remember for later on. The movie taking No Way Home's slot could only work in December, and that is Hawkeye. While I haven't watched it since it came out, I remember having a good time with this show, and I feel like it's one of the better series Marvel released. It also helps that Hawkeye is one of the original Avengers, so he has pretty good name recognition that would help this movie. Besides restructuring the film to fit a movie format, there are not an insane number of changes I'd like to make, with one exception. I would introduce elements elements of Yelena's backstory from the Black Widow movie into this film. You need to do it because otherwise, no one will have a clue who this character is, but this is also important to set up her next appearance in the MCU. Another thing to note is that Kingpin is introduced as part of the MCU in this movie, and that leads me to a point I want to make. I wanted to have two major overarching narratives in the multiverse saga, a multiverse storyline and a street level storyline. And I feel like having most of these movies fit into either one or the other helps make these movies feel more connected. I contemplated having these movies release dates swapped, but I decided to keep Multiverse of Madness and Wakanda Forever the same. I think Multiverse of Madness would logically be a better ending for Phase 4, but realistically, moving Wakanda Forever forward so much would affect its quality. While I don't think these movies are incredible masterpieces, they don't need to be replaced or have massive overhauls. They just need some more time to breathe and improve, which they now have with this schedule. Black Panther doesn't lead to anything right now, but I feel like it was important to keep. Doctor Strange is pretty much a continuation of WandaVision's plot, and it also leads into the further emphasis on the multiverse in phases 5 and 6. Moving into phase 5, this is the movie I had the most fun with, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Brave New World was okay, but it got me thinking that you could get a pretty good movie if you took parts from both it and The Falcon and the Winter Soldier and combined them. This would come out when Quantumania was released, and it might be questionable if elements of Brave New World's story had even been thought of by then, but let's just go along with it. Some parts I take from the show are this. Sam is Falcon for most of the movie, Bucky is the secondary main character, Sharon Carter could replace Ruth, Zemo could replace Giancarlo Esposito's character, and John Walker will be part of the movie. Elements from Brave New World I take are the discovered adamantium being the story's driving force, Thaddeus Ross being president and turning into Red Hulk, Sam being asked to make a new Avengers team, and Samuel Stearns being the main villain. Some ideas I had are that Sam could maybe be asked early in the film to join a new Avengers team with John Walker as Captain America. John Walker could be framed for trying to assassinate Ross like Isaiah Bradley was. Instead of adamantium coming from the celestial inside the Earth, it could come from a meteorite that hits Earth, which is revealed to be from another universe in the Samuel Stearns post-credits scene that now doesn't feel as out of nowhere. As you can tell, I can keep talking about this movie. But the important things I want you to take away is that, despite being found not guilty, Walker isn't allowed to return to being Captain America, and therefore becomes US agent. Bucky is mentioned as running for Congress, which will come back at the end of Phase 5, and lastly, Sam is now Captain America and is beginning to reform the Avengers. Now, let's move on to a movie I won't talk about for as long. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is mostly self-contained, but it's great, and we're keeping it mostly the same. Wow, that was short. Coming out in the Marvel's time slot is another TV show, Loki. Since it's coming out in November 2023, that means the movie can use both seasons of the show. That is a lot of content to squeeze into a film, but there's a decent amount of material that can be removed to make it work. This movie is important in general due to its focus on the multiverse, and directly important because it leads right into the next film. I could see some issues arising due to the Jonathan Majors controversy being around by this point, and we all saw what that did to the Flash. At least he's not the main hero, I guess. But one minor change I would make is that He Who Remains isn't preventing conflicts between other Kangs, but other powerful characters across the multiverse in general. It's for the best that I removed Quantumania, not just because it's not a great film, but also because now we don't have a whole post-credit scene setting up specifically Jonathan Majors as the MCU's big bad. Although he kinda still is, since he destroyed everything Marvel was setting up. When talking about Loki, I kind of hinted at the next movie, Deadpool and Wolverine. While its story is flawed, and it doesn't make a lot of sense at times, I still thought it was an overall fun movie. It once again adds to the multiverse storyline, and its use of the TVA connects it with the last movie, Loki. I thought about moving these two movies further apart, because I thought introducing the TVA and having it reappear back to back would be weird, but I decided to keep going with the more realistic option. One more thing I would add is some minor jokes or references about the Avengers team Sam is making, since the last couple of movies haven't touched on it. Now, I can't lie, I haven't watched Daredevil Born Again yet, but with the setup from No Way Home and Hawkeye, it would feel wrong not to have a movie with this character. One thing I do know is that the first season was supposed to be 18 episodes long, but it then got cut in half into two 9-episode long seasons, so I could see both seasons being combined into one movie. Since I haven't seen the show, I can't recommend many changes. Perhaps we could get a post-credit scene teasing Daredevil joining the Avengers, but I peeked a little bit into the spoilers for this video, and it doesn't look like something that would fit into Season 1's ending. So first, I think we need to see how Season 2 plays out. The final movie of Phase 5, and the last one I'll be going over in this video, is Thunderbolts. This movie was pretty good, but there are some things I want to talk about. I feel like this movie does a great job at showing what I like about this timeline. You probably should watch Hawkeye and the Falcon and the Winter Soldier before watching this movie, but in our reality, you need to watch those two as shows along with Brave New World and Black Widow. I guess also Ant-Man and the Wasp for Ghost, but Ghost is not the same in that movie, so there's not really that much of a need to. But my point is that it manages to get the same information across in a much more streamlined manner. One potential change that is interesting is Taskmaster, since they haven't appeared in the MCU up to this point. Maybe we could get a version of the character more faithful to the source material, and who knows, maybe he could have a larger role in the movie like originally planned. In terms of impact on the narrative, a second Avengers team called the New Avengers has been formed, and the multiverse storyline is again moving forward, this time directly leading into the Fantastic Four First Steps. I created this slate for fun at first, but decided it would be a cool idea for a video, and I am certainly glad I made that decision. Do you have any ideas for how to improve the multiverse saga so far? Do you think you would make any changes to my ideas? Comment them down below, and I'll be sure to check them out. I hope you all enjoyed today's video. If you did, check out some other content. If you really did, subscribe so that you know when future content comes out. I have a Patreon, so check that out if you want to support me and see my videos ad-free. That's going to be it for now, and I'll see you all in the next one. Take care.